1, 2. Hello, Dublin! How's it going, guys? My name is Tyg. I will be your MC for the evening. I'm just filling in. Alan Shatter couldn't make it. Went well, John. It went well. That's one of John's jokes. Round of applause for John Herson. Guys, we've got an amazing evening for you, just as people are coming in here. Yeah, take your seat. It's all ahead of you, an incredible lineup. I just want to start off by saying that I did a gig here, though, a few months ago, and it was half empty. So that's disappointing. Yeah. Where's the solidarity in that, John? Do you know? But guys, it is a pleasure, genuinely a pleasure and an honor to be emceeing this, I think, very timely and important event tonight. I think we'll all agree. I am going to get out of the way and bring on our first esteemed guest. Pretty much nobody who's going to share or speak tonight needs an actual introduction, but I'll give you them anyway, just to say. So our first speaker tonight is the legend that is Des Gerety, former SIP2 president, member of the European Parliament and anti-apartheid campaigner. Des is chair of the Cle Club, who have been kind enough to give up their space in Liberty Hall this evening in order to host this important event. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Des Gerety.
It's a real pleasure to be here tonight among so many good people, so many comrades and friends. And I have a feeling that most Irish people at the moment want to express their concern about what's happening in the world we're living in. I think every morning there's a feeling of anger and anxiety and a feeling that maybe our voices are not being heard. But for us, I think it's very important that we keep on letting our voice be heard. And tonight is a night of solidarity and of old friends getting together and celebrating, but also in solidarity and struggle to try and do something about the world we live in and to try and put a stop to some of the awful things that are happening. Now, I'm the former president here of the union, and we had many campaigns here in Liberty Hall. We had the anti-apartheid movement. We also had many meetings about the war in Vietnam. We had many human rights meetings. We had the Dubliners. I was remembering recently listening to Luke Kelly out there singing, and he was singing about the sun is burning in the sky, clouds of death go slowly drifting by. And when you look at the television, you see what's happening in Gaza, that the stars have gone. And what used to be stars are actually bombs, coloured blood bombs dropping down on tops of people. So the singers thought in those days maybe that the 70s were going to be different and we'd transform the world we live in. But unfortunately, we haven't done so. But we keep plugging, and the hope is still there. The other point I'd like to make as well for coming to a trade union hall, and we got people writing to us objecting, incidentally, to having this event because we referred to South Africa and the connections with Mandela, arguing about issues there, but also arguing about problems in a lot of other countries. We know there are problems in a lot of countries. There are lots of human rights issues. But there's one profound issue at the moment that the United Nations, the United States of America, all the big powers know is going on, but seem helpless or want to be helpless to stop it. So it's only the voice of the ordinary people that's going to make a difference. The other point I would like to make to you about coming to Liberty Hall, this is sacred ground because this is where Larkin and Connolly built the trade union movement in Ireland. And incidentally, in 1916, a big gunboat was brought up to Livy to blast the place as they were trying to blast the GPO. And it suffered and had to be rebuilt afterwards. So that's not a strange phenomenon for the Irish people. But they left us with a legacy, and I think this is important. The principle of the union at that time was that an injury to one is the concern of all. And I think that's the fundamental principle in which we must pursue civil rights. In other words, if people are in trouble, wherever they're in trouble, however they're in trouble, we should combine our strengths, our capability to try and help them. Nelson. So for that reason, when someone mentioned Nelson Mandela, I think of the Dunstore strikers. I think of the people who worked so hard, long and hard, to support the international movement to put an end to apartheid in South Africa. And yes, South Africa has its new problems and they'll have to deal with them. We have them as well. But we must remember that was an important struggle of the human race to put an end to apartheid. And now we have another version of apartheid, unfortunately, in Gaza, in the Holy Land, as it used to be referred to, but it's very unholy at the moment. But the fact is, we have to continue to show our solidarity. And remember that there's almost a murder machine working at the moment, the military murder machine, Netanyahu's murder machine in Gaza and in the West Bank. It's now in Lebanon. They've been bombing Syria. And all areas in the Middle East, they feel free to bomb men, women, and children. Hospitals, health workers, UN workers, and more recently, which you probably heard a lot about, even threatening the UN forces over there. And there's a lot of people who get upset about an American, a British, or maybe an Irish soldier, and they're correct to do so. But don't remember, we're getting every night. There was 39 killed last night. There was 40 killed the night before. These are just numbers. Men, women, and children, each of whom had a family, loved ones, and would not want to die in their bed. So remembering those tonight, we're here, and I'm pleased that we were able to bring people together for this occasion. A few nights ago, there was another event on behalf of Gaza, and we have to keep going, keep doing that. So I hope you enjoy the evening, and in fact, enjoy the fact that we're meeting so many old and new friends, and we're all standing together for a good cause. So what I'm going to do, cut that short, is invite some of my very good friends from the Cle Club, because we would normally have a session here on the third Wednesday of the month. And we do that to keep the flag flying, or we could say the flame of the labour movement in song and story and poetry and songs and so on, bring people together. We're here on the third Wednesday of every month, and we would have been here tonight, but when I heard that there was a solidarity event for Mandela and for the Dunstore strikers, we had to be part of it. So we're very much part of it. And I want to also mention the fact, of course, that we're sharing with the other people, the Trestle group and the Left Bloc. These are very, very active groups who are doing their own thing, but we all felt we should come together. So I want to bring Johnny Tennant, my friend from the guitar, with the guitar, to join me. And Noreen Daly and Fiona Gaffney. And we thought that tonight, of all the songs, and there's hundreds of songs, we should pick up one song which has rooted in the Irish tradition. And we came up with the idea of doing The Rights of Man. This song is really interesting because it's nearly 300 years old and it's still fresh and it's still very meaningful and written very apt for what we're doing tonight. It was a song of the United Irishmen in 1793, so back. And it was rooted in the idea that Catholics and Protestants should be together and people of non-religion could combine together to make a better country in Ireland. So I thought that this was probably the right song to do tonight. And when we've done the song, we play a reel called The Starry Plough on behalf of the Labour movement. So, okay, so thank you. All you lovers of freedom, wherever ye degree, no matter what trade or religion that you be, the right hand of friendship to you I will extend, and hope for your pardon if you I should offend. For the rights of man now let us all agree, and the rights of all those who would be free, till oppression and tyranny are banished from the land. We'll fight for justice with our heart and hand.
sect from bigotry. I'm free and follow what conscience dictates to me. All are my comrades who are ready for to stand in defiance of justice and the rights of man.
Fui ceart y déna, ni mór fe cynt y fui, Gor ceart o'n illa gwnne heil y sirse yn y gri. Ys coma cyn traf, gor am bon o bwy, Nach mar y ceil o'n den, nach dyr gach il y li.
Of man, then let us all agree
For the rights of all those who would be free, no matter their colour or nationality.
Together we'll
share in the one humanity. For the rights of man, then let us all agree. For the rights of all those who would be free, no matter their colour or nationality. Together we all share in the one humanity. And we're going to finish our little bit by playing a reel called The Plough and the Stars, which is the symbol of the Labour movement, the one that Connolly used, the one that Sean O'Casey praised so much, and one which we still carry with pride in our movement. So we're going to play The Plough and the Stars, this reel. All right?
Ladies and gentlemen, one more time for Des Garrity and the Cle Club. Woo! Sorry there, guys. I actually had one job was to let you know about the fire exits, which I didn't do at the start, but I presume you've seen them by now. Just to get a sense of the audience, how many people here are from Dublin, from our local? Grant. How many people are from the north? Yeah, the cutting edge. And how many people are from Cork? Oh my God, I don't think you're all going to fit in my car. I presume you want me to take you home, like? Most Cork people are trying to get out of here. No, I'm only joking. I'm coming to love Dublin more and more as this evening is. Oh, is that ridiculous to you, is it? Okay. Where are you from? Dublin. I actually don't have time for this. I slipped into stand-up mode. Sorry. We just don't have time. I love you all. So guys, one of the main reasons we're here, obviously, is the Dunstore Strikers. So just to actually introduce that segment, to give everyone a bit of a refresher on what life was like in South Africa and Ireland back in 1984, we're going to have a documentary video right now to give us a little bit more of an understanding of the Dunstore's anti-apartheid strike, and it features some original footage. So enjoy, and I'll see you in a moment.
In the last few years, 3.5 million blacks have been forced to move from their homes and settle in black reservations like this one. There is no proper housing or sanitation, and blacks continue to pour onto these settlements under the South African government's plan to resettle them away from the whites. When the plan is complete, the blacks of South Africa will only be entitled to live on 13% of the total land. They make up over 70% of the population. Blacks in South Africa are not allowed to vote. They have no elected representatives in the South African government, and in order for blacks to move a distance of 20 miles from home, they need a special government pass. Hundreds of blacks are arrested daily for not carrying these passes. It is illegal in the country for a black to marry a white, and if they marry in another country, it is invalid under the South African Immorality Act. A black may not sit beside a white in most cinemas, cannot eat in the same restaurant, nor can he lie in the next hospital bed. 3 months ago, a 20-year-old cashier at Dunnes Stores in Henry Street, Dublin, said she wouldn't handle South African fruit because of the treatment of blacks in the country. She was suspended. 12 of her colleagues joined her on the picket line. They are also refusing to handle South African fruit.
We had got a union instruction not to handle South African goods, and when we all decided, the girls were out on strike here now, and some of the girls who were in work and decided that we wouldn't handle the goods. And when I refused to handle them, the rest of the girls had been refusing to handle them as well, but there's a man dressed behind my register when I actually refused, and I was brought up to the office and told I was given a few minutes to think about what I was after doing, and I didn't change my mind, and then they suspended me then indefinitely until I came back in and handled the goods.
We think that the government should intervene because they're always speaking out against apartheid and how bad it is, and this is a great opportunity for them to really do something about the situation over there and block all South African produce coming in here.
Last Friday, a cold and wintry afternoon, we visited the picket outside Dunnes Stores in Henry Street. The strikers maintain a 6 days a week picket and operate a rota system. Karen Gearan, shop steward for the striking workers. Theresa Mooney. Sandra Griffin. And Tommy Davis, the only man on strike. Before this strike began last July, the people on this picket knew very little about South Africa or apartheid. Their 8 months on the street have made them much more aware of the cause they've taken such a strong stand on.
We didn't know a lot about it. It was just merely a union instruction. But since we came out on strike, we know a lot more about South Africa than we did at the beginning.
Has the whole thing changed you personally, do you think?
It has. I mean, we've got to the stage now where we'll check everything before we buy it, and we won't buy anything that's from South Africa or we think it's from South Africa. So it has changed us.
Right. How about you, Tommy? What's it been like for you being the only fella amongst all these women who've been out?
Well, I'm a trade unionist, and it's just a matter of, it was a union instruction, and we just came out in support of a colleague who was suspended, who refused to handle South African goods.
We met 4 people that have been in South Africa and lived there and know what it's like. One of them comes down to the pick line regularly. He lives in Dublin at the moment, and he's a black trade unionist called Nimrod Sajaka. He's in exile from South Africa since about the 1950s, 56, and he has told us an awful lot that has happened over there. Another man, Marius Schoon is his name, and he lost his wife and his child to a parcel bomb in South Africa because of his trade union activities. So when we see people like that, our battle is nothing to what their battle is. We have won a certain amount already. We've created an awareness in Ireland which is in a way a victory. But it's not only the apartheid issue, it's the trade union issue as well. Dunnes Stores and their management are trying to take our right to follow our union's policy. And if they take that away from us, what else are they going to take away from us? We will not be beaten on this. And unfortunately, we don't want to stay out for another 8 months, but if it comes to it, we will be out for another 8 months.
But we're not actually not saying that people should or shouldn't buy them. We're saying that we should have the moral right not to handle the goods. We feel that it's something similar to the situation if we were nurses and if we refused to carry out an abortion. That would be considered our moral right. We wouldn't be suspended or sacked for doing so. And we consider that this should be our moral right as well.
I would like to see a groundswell of support coming their way, but they certainly have made their point, and at very great cost to themselves, and this is what I would wish to commend them for. I must say that they are quite remarkable young people.
There were emotional scenes at Dublin Airport as the workers were reunited with family and supporters. Sean McBride was among the well-wishers and several members of the Irish anti-apartheid group. Father Neil O'Brien and Bishop Dermot O'Mahony were also there. Later during a news conference, union organiser Brendan Archbold gave an account of the group's experiences.
I think first of all I should caution everybody that on the basis of the reception we received in Johannesburg, you're probably in the presence of the 8 most dangerous supermarket workers that you're ever likely to encounter.
The group said they were treated like criminals and were urging the government to seek an explanation and examine the non-visa requirement between the two countries.
We were certainly never given any reason for being refused, ever, to this moment, other than the statement that was issued, which we read in London. So we would certainly like to know why we were refused entry, and we would certainly like the government to find out for us if they can. I hope they have a little more success than we had.
Mr Don Mullen from the Justice and Peace Group said British Airways also had some explaining to do about the attitude of a pilot when they boarded the plane.
He said, as the pilot, I am not prepared to fly the aircraft with these people on board. Their baggage is now being located. We know where they are. It will take about half an hour to locate it, and then they'll be gone.
The group then left to go down to the picket line, but not before expressing determination about their return to South Africa.
From the airport, Mr Mandela travelled by cavalcade to the Berkeley Court Hotel, where he had a private lunch with trade union leaders and members of the Irish anti-apartheid movement. He was also introduced to some of the Dunnes Stores workers who spent 3 years on strike, highlighting the apartheid system and the importation of goods from South Africa into this country. One of the Dunnes workers presented Mr Mandela with a message from the Birmingham Six.
You know you've again failed in your MC duties when you see people at the side going. See, this is the reason I don't get much work, guys. So guys, in a moment, we are going to have a panel discussion with some of the Dunnes Stores strikers who are actually here this evening with us. Yeah, incredibly. But before that, we are going to have some words. Yeah, are we happy? Zoom is working and all that jazz, yeah. We're going to have some words. It is genuinely one of the honours of my life to introduce Mandla Mandela, former ANC MP, tribal chief and grandson of Nelson Mandela. He has the honor of being, wow.
Thank you, Program Director, the leadership of the organizing committee of Dismantling Apartheid from South Africa to Palestine, fellow activists and freedom fighters, the community of Dublin, members of the media, comrades and friends, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It is indeed a great honor to address you this evening. We bring warm greetings from the Mandela family and the peoples of South Africa. Dublin is the home of the Irish anti-apartheid movement, and we salute the pioneers and activists who championed our fight against the brutal apartheid regime in South Africa. Comrades and friends, this year marks 60 years since the founding of the Irish anti-apartheid movement in 1964. We take this opportunity to pay tribute to the inimitable late Professor Kader Asma and the loyal band of Irish activists who worked tirelessly for nearly 3 decades, organizing a grassroots level across all sectors of Irish society. The immense sacrifices that they made in the work of the Irish anti-apartheid movement enabled us to dismantle the heinous apartheid system in South Africa and contribute to our march to freedom in 1994. We owe Dublin and the people of Ireland a colossal debt of gratitude. The example that you set motivated generations of anti-apartheid activists all over the world. Comrades and friends, ladies and gentlemen, there are few examples more iconic and legendary in the annals of the anti-apartheid struggle than the Dunstor strike. It demonstrated to us what is possible even when one activist takes a principled stand and is prepared to do something meaningful. In 1984, the apartheid regime in South Africa was at its height of its brutality, and our people suffered immensely, but continued to respond to Oliver Tambo and the ANC's leadership's call to make the country ungovernable. Our suffering motivated anti-apartheid activists all over the world to create awareness about what was going on in South Africa and mobilize the international solidarity movement with our cause. On the 19th July 1984, Mary Manning, a shop worker at Henry Street, Dublin outlet of Dunstores, refused to handle the sale of grapefruit from South Africa. Her union, IDATU, had issued directions to its members not to handle South African produce in protest of South African apartheid policies. When Manning and shop steward Karen Geron continued to refuse to handle South African produce, they were suspended, and 10 IDATU members working in the store went on strike with them. The additional striking workers, which I'd like to acknowledge this evening, were Liz Dizzy, Michelle Gavin, Vonnie Monroe, Alma Russells, Tommy Davis, Sandra Griffin, Teresa Mooney, Catherine O'Reilly, and Brendan Barron. Comrades and friends, the strike lasted until April 1987, when the Irish government banned the import of South African goods. The ban came about as a result of public pressure in support of the strikers and was the first complete ban of South African imports by any Western government. While the strike lasted, the strikers got only £21 a week strike pay. At first, the strikers received support from few individuals and groups such as Nimrod Sejake, but they were encouraged when Archbishop Desmond Tutu met with them on his way to receive the Nobel Peace Prize Award and invited them to visit South Africa. 8 of the strikers managed to travel to South Africa in 1985, but were not permitted to enter the country. Their deportation from South Africa received extensive news coverage in Ireland. This must have been immensely disappointing to them, and I can truly say that I share in their disappointment, as I would have loved to be in your midst this evening. Comrades and friends, ladies and gentlemen, today we are once again mobilizing here in Dublin and all over the UK and Ireland to dismantle apartheid Israel and to demand an end to the occupation and draw the world's attention to the ongoing genocide and ethnic cleansing that has been going on for the past 8 decades. Comrades and friends and fellow activists who stand in solidarity with the struggle of the Palestinian people, we are pained by the images that reaches us daily of the inhumanity of the apartheid Israeli regime and its killing machine. Nothing in our 350-year-long struggle against colonial occupation and 6 decades of apartheid brutality compares to the evil perpetrated by the Zionist regime. They continue to act with impunity, shielded by their allies in the United States of America and the United Kingdom and Western powers. They defy international law and continue to expand illegal settlements on Palestinian lands in pursuit of the Zionist dream of a greater Israel. It is time, comrades and friends, that we stop them in their tracks and put an end to the genocide and ethnic cleansing. They have obliterated most of Gaza's infrastructure, bringing life in Gaza to the brink of the precipice with widespread hunger and starvation. Today, we watched with horror as they firebombed the tens of displaced Palestinians who have been displaced multiple times from the north and south of Gaza. We want to use this August forum to call for the expulsion of the apartheid Israel from the United Nations. Comrades and friends, we cannot continue to allow that our institutions of global governance turn a blind eye to the daily atrocities committed by apartheid Israel, even killing UNRWA workers and firing on UN peacekeepers. On the 12th of November, 1974, the UN General Assembly suspended South Africa from participating in its work due to international opposition to the policy of apartheid. South Africa was only readmitted to the United Nations in 1994 following its transition into democracy. We must not allow comrades and friends, war criminals, and those who give the instructions to commit genocide and ethnic cleansing of Palestinian people to sit alongside us in the community of nations. If South Africa was suspended from the UN General Assembly for what I dare to call a lesser crime, then the world must give apartheid Israel the boot. We demand the immediate expulsion of apartheid Israel from the United Nations. Comrades and friends and fellow activists, we must honor the 40th anniversary of the Dance Store strike by intensifying our efforts to isolate apartheid Israel and treat it like the pariah state that it is. We must continue to mobilize our international solidarity network to boycott apartheid Israeli goods and all those companies funding and supporting the genocide. I want to remind the South African government of Madiba's words when he visited Ireland to accept the freedom of the city of Dublin, when he said, I quote, "The day is not far when we too shall confer the freedom of the capital city on some of your distinguished daughters and sons," close quote. It is also time for the Dublin city to confer the freedom of the city on the dance store strikers for their heroic struggle against apartheid and for their selfless solidarity with the oppressed in South Africa. Comrades and friends, I intend to follow my grandfather's wishes and will contact the relevant authorities in South Africa seeking to confer the freedom of the city to the dance store strikers in South Africa. From this August platform, we also call on the Occupied Territory Bill to be passed into legislation as soon as possible. This bill will prevent goods and services from the occupied territories in Palestine from being imported into Ireland. Under international law, these goods and services are the proceeds of criminal activity. The people of Ireland must not allow that their money contributes to propping up apartheid Israel and the occupation and genocide. Comrades and friends, we call on you and all in the International Solidarity Network to redouble your efforts in expelling apartheid Israel from all international forums, be that political, diplomatic, economic, sports, and culture. Our march to dismantle apartheid Israel and to stop the genocide and ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people is unstoppable, and freedom is inevitable. President Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela taught us that it always seems impossible until it's done. I thank you, comrades. Free, free Palestine. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thank you, comrades.
I just want to say, if it was Cork, those girls would already have the freedom of the city. So, without further ado, Dunstore strikers spent 2 years and 9 months on strike to vindicate their right to not handle goods from the racist and brutal apartheid regime in South Africa. They were condemned from the pulpits, beaten by Gardaí, ridiculed by their work colleagues, and spat at in the street. They stood their ground, and history has shown that they were right then, just as they are right now, with their support for Palestine. Gives me a great pleasure to introduce some of the strikers who are here with us tonight. Sandra Griffin, Vonnie Monroe, and Mary Manning. Whoa. Mandela didn't even get that. So guys, now as you might have gathered, I'm not a professional, so I'd want you to do most of the talking, but there's, I suppose, the one burning question I have is for the activism that's happening today and the activism that you pioneered in that era. What are the lessons? So what did you go through in that period that you would, and I'm sure, and I know you all are Palestine activists anyway, but for the people today who are feeling maybe that they can't make any change, it can't be done, what advice would you give them? Mary?
I suppose, like when we went out on strike initially, it was a union instruction, and we had no idea that it was going to last that long. But the more we learned about what was happening in South Africa, the more determined we got, and the more we felt that there was no way that we could go back and handle South African goods. So, although the strike took 2 years and 9 months, I think the lessons that we learned probably, I mean, we didn't have social media or anything at the time, so I don't know whether that would have been an advantage or a disadvantage, to be honest with you. It doesn't seem to be doing much good for what we're seeing all the time now. But I think, I don't know whether we would have or could have done anything different, because we did as much as we could with what we had. It was a lack of the government intervening. It was trying to get the message out to people, which would have been a lot harder than it is now. But I think that the main lesson was just to stick with it, I suppose we were all very young at the time. You see the pictures, you realise how young we were. But I think it was just, I mean, it started off as an up yours to Duns as well, because they just wouldn't talk to us. But I think it kind of turned on them because it made them look, and they're always now known as Dunstores, where the anti-apartheid strike was on. So, you know, I mean, had they let us initially refuse to handle the goods, we probably, in all honesty, would have just kept refusing to handle them and refusing to serve them. But because we didn't know or didn't feel as much as we did later on, it might not have lasted that long. We might have got bored, got fed up, whatever. But it was because we learned about what was happening over there. That's what changed us, I think. I don't know.
In terms of lessons, I don't know how many more lessons you need to know. It's all in front of you. Every time you turn on TV, it's all in front of you. So it's just your conscience. Everybody's conscience has to kick in, you know. So, you know, you have your own spending power. You know, you buy what you want. We all know what's coming from it's being sent to Israel. But at the same time, the problem that we had when the strike was over was it was rerouted. And this is happening now. It's definitely happening now. It's happening in Ukraine with Russia, with these massive cars that these Russians want. The same thing is happening with Israel. It doesn't matter. They'll get them there when they want to, but it's just for you personally, whoever has any, wants justice for the Palestinians, just make sure that any money you spend goes in the right way. That's all you can do. We can have strikes again, and you probably won't have as many people coming, bothering with anybody who goes on strike. Or we have had it before, But it's just your own spending power, as far as I can see. Anyway, that's all I can do as far as I'm concerned as a citizen.
I suppose also to contact your government and try and get the government to actually stand up and do something. Like it took us over 2 years to get them to bring in, or to even, what they did was they found a clause that where it was, if something was produced by slave or prison labour, they could refuse to handle it. And that's, after 2 years, that was the clause that they banned the goods. So the government don't want to do it. So we just need to keep feet on the streets and just keep telling them that we haven't gone away, we're still going to be here. So.
But also, don't you wonder how many more marches do we have to do before the government have what our opinion is on this?
You've nothing to add, yeah. I mean, I'd love to know where you got your resilience from, though, because you say you're so young. It sounds to me, from what I've read, that you didn't have, particularly at the beginning, you had no public support really to speak of. Where does that resilience come from? Because that's one thing that I've definitely trying to get my head around at the moment for people who, you have to persevere, as you say. You have to really push the government all the way before they'll acknowledge you. So, were you always resilient people? Did you know that you were going to do something of significance like this, or did it all happen?
To be honest with you, just to be honest with you, it was all a building block in terms of we went out on strike. We went out for 2 weeks, we thought. July was really good. We'd do the 2 weeks. I mean, let's be honest, that's what we said. We'll do 2 weeks, and this will be good. We'll have a break. But at the end of the day, it was building blocks and meeting people who gave us more information each time, and it opened our eyes, opened our minds, and that's where the resilience went on with.
Plus, I think because we all stuck together, we all supported each other. If one of us was down on a certain day, we were able to lift each other up, and we were there together. We were friends, and we are still friends.
So solidarity, really.
Yeah.
Solidarity. Yeah. Do you mind me asking about the emotional toll that it would have taken on you? So you're out in the streets for more than 2.5 years.
We lifted the picket because the government were trying to find some way to end the strike. So we were actually on the picket line for 2 years, just a little bit below 2 years. Well, for me, I suppose personally, because my name was mentioned all the time, like my parents were just so worried and they were right to be worried in a way as well, because in 1984 in Dublin, you couldn't get a job. I don't know what Cork was like. I'm sure it was
much better.
Should have gone down there. But if you were in any way named a troublemaker, which is what they named us, you weren't getting a job. You just weren't. And to be out on strike for more money or for personal issues is one thing, but to be out on strike for people who are thousands of miles away from you, who have nothing to do, people who are just going, what are you on strike for? It's just, it's ridiculous. That's, and I was trying to get the message across. So from my point of view, my parents were very worried, and at the end of the strike, I ended up having to go to Australia because I couldn't get a job here. So.
Same for me. I went to Australia as well. And I was a single parent, and I had a mortgage on a home that I lost. I had to hand it back to at the time, ironically, Dublin Corporation, which is Dublin City Council now. They unionised and all as that was. There was no help coming from that direction. I had to hand the place back, and I got a flat from them. But I was probably one of the oldest strikers that was there. I had a daughter, she was 3. And nobody could understand was I leaving my child homeless? Like, this is what I was listening to, you know. But my mother was fantastic, absolute champion. And, you know, anything I wanted to do, okay, I'll help you. And she did. She helped me all the way. She put a roof over my head when I didn't have a roof, you know. But in terms of, because we weren't striking for money, because that's all anybody ever did at that time was strike for money, it was just so foreign to people that we, that's what I used to think about when you'd be trying to talk to people about it. They'd say, but you're not getting that now of this. You know, that was literally, you're not getting, what are you getting out of this? You're making people happy somewhere else? Like, but they just didn't get it at the time. And look, we can't say anything about people at that point too. We knew nothing about what was going on till we educated ourselves. Maybe they went away and did educate themselves, and now they probably support an anti-apartheid situation, you know? I don't know.
I mean, you must have thought that you were going to be treated close to heroes, though, no? Like, was it...
No, Jesus, no.
I don't think that ever entered any of our heads, ever. Like, I mean, like, we went out, we had a union instruction, we followed the union instruction. Now, I suppose prior to that, we had a list of, I think it was 18 things on the list that we wanted to speak to Duns for, about things like, stupid things like, if you're on a register, you had to wait until someone came and relieved you off the register. So you could be like 20 minutes waiting to go to the loo, which was 2 or 3 flights of stairs up, and someone would time you to make sure you were on, like, it was all these kind of stupid rules that they had, and they wouldn't sit and talk with us. So when the instruction came in, that's what I was saying, it was like well, fuck you, like, we're going to do it anyway. So I think it probably, like, although it kind of started off like that, it was, when we were on strike, it was a personal thing to us. Even so much so that when, I remember a German film crew come over and they wanted us to hold South African grapefruit just to film the thing, and we just couldn't even do it, like, so it just became part of us as we were, like, and we didn't expect any kind of thanks for it or anything. We never did, like, all we wanted was the right not to handle South African goods. In the end, what we got was probably a lot more than what we expected, because the government actually banned them. So we achieved a lot more than we had set out to achieve, although it wasn't on the list of what we were looking to achieve at the time.
Which you didn't expect to be treated like pariahs in the after event.
No,
you would have to leave, or I mean, like, how did that...
But what I will say about it is, when we had an opportunity to go to South Africa and see how people were living, black South Africans were living, if we could have bottled that, brought it back, tried to explain it, we would have had so much more support, you know. It just, we ourselves didn't even know the extent of what we were fighting for at the time, you know. So on one level you'd say, okay, you don't understand. I mean, there was nuns passing by. I mean, we thought the nuns knew everything about Africa, you know. This were poor people in Africa. I mean, truly, a black baby box used to go around our school.
That's right.
And you put your money in, and like...
Fixture of my house as well.
Yeah, and then when you see, and even those things that came in from the church for, I don't know, you put your money in it, I don't know what time, Troca, yeah. So that kind of thing, you know. But one day, Catherine had a toe-to-toe, like face-to-face with this nun, you know, and she's trying to explain to her, but I mean, you were telling me all my life I should be doing this, helping these people, and now you're walking across my picket line, you know. That's true, you know.
Just on the church, we did hear stories about priests preaching from the pulpit, telling people to pass the picket line, to go into Duns. And also Bishop Casey sent us a letter, told us that we had a cheek, I can't remember the words he used, but more or less, a cheek not to ask him before we went out on strike. So.
Sounds like a great guy.
Yeah. that was the smallest of his.
My God. I'm just checking if Mandla is still with
out
us.
For him, huh?
Mandla's still with us. Exactly. Spot on.
Yes, I am. I'm still here. I'm listening to the input that has been made.
How are you, brother? I just wanted to know if you wanted to ask the girls anything, or if you wanted to participate.
Yes, absolutely. I think for us, I mean, as South Africans, the dance store strike workers instilled hope not only us in South Africa, but even amongst our leaders like my grandfather who were lingering in apartheid jails on Robben Island. The news went far and wide. But it was the impact on the anti-apartheid movement and the international solidarity networks, because the dance store strike spread right across Ireland, right across the UK, across Europe, and in the West. And many people in the international solidarity movement were able to carry the message across the globe. And perhaps the question we should be asking today is, how can we be able, in today's solidarity with the peoples of Palestine, to ensure that we conscientize one another on the products that ought to be boycotted, and ensure that we have effective campaigns to ensure that we can be able to isolate apartheid state of Israel. So I'd like to ask from the panel as to what they think would be the products to be targeting in today's time and era. Thank you.
I suppose if you're involved in any Palestinian support group, there is a lot of information that goes around there, which is changing daily and changes all the time. So it's a good thing to either join one and get the information, so you do know what is from Israel. I know that we've a shop here, in Aldi and Lidl, who sell a lot of baby wipes and nappies, and they come from Israel. So there is something that a lot of women would buy, because a lot of people have babies and stuff. So even something as small as that, if people know what to boycott, then they will, I think, especially with what's coming across daily on our media now.
And I, in terms of, you're asking the question, what should we, like we had grapefruit, but then we looked at other product after that. And it just seems to be, we've Aldi with the baby product, but there is a much wider stuff, but we're not getting it. Leaflet drops for me is the thing. I look at that stuff, Now I've had a few, and they're I think it's technology, some sort of technology that I don't use, I wouldn't be interested in. It's stuff that is in your conscience, that you go to the supermarket and you put in your basket every day. I mean, in terms of, if that's what you're going to, how you're going to approach it, is by a supermarket, or buying power, But I mean, there's so much stuff. You couldn't keep up with it. But I mean, in terms of if people who support groups get together, you look after this, you look after you can get the message out. It's just a matter of people reading it, And if you use the product, just try not to use it,
It's also the likes of AXA Insurance who are who invest deeply in Israel.
Exactly.
It's all these kind of stuff. But that I found my information about stuff like that from my local Palestinian support group. That's, I think, a good idea to try and get people to join.
Groups, and in your area, like support groups in your own area where that stuff is going on, hit that, just keep hitting that. And everybody look after their own, and then eventually they'll get the message. When stuff is not bought, when it's coming off the shelf, the government has to look after the small businessman, the big businessman, maybe they'll get the message, But like people on their own, I really have this thing about people on their own. It's the governments have to do something. This little tittle tone with Joe Biden saying, I'm giving you a letter now, 30 days to, you better sort yourselves out, or I'm not giving you half the supply. This nonsense.
I thought that the worst thing I've ever seen was that Biden talking yesterday about the fact that they weren't letting supplies in.
Yeah.
And if you don't allow the supplies in, we won't sell you the arms.
So
what, they want them to be fed before they kill them?
It's absurdism.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
We'll stop. And we're giving you 31 days now to do this. How many people will die between then? And it's nonsense.
Grant. I actually forgot to say as well, is Ahmed still joining us, John? I think. Grand. Okay, give me a shout. We're going to have somebody from Gaza who's going to be live linking with us, guys. We're going to give him a big welcome when he logs back in. We don't have that much time left, so I was going to ask a question. It's an impossible question to answer. It's one that I've been thinking non-stop of how to do, but sure, look, I'll throw it out to you anyway as you're here. You said earlier that if the people had the information back then, they probably would have been more supportive. But the people have the information now. How can we reach more people? Because, we were at Shannon Airport last weekend and there was a swell of people and the guards didn't really know what to do with us because there was so many of us. Like, if we could have that kind of swell of support all the time, we could really make a difference. But I don't know about what people here have experienced, but in Cork it's the same, few hundred, sometimes more, but it's the same people all the time. So it feels like we're all seeing the horrors, but it's the same people. How can we reach more ordinary people to get involved in this movement,
I don't understand how people can look at what is coming out daily, hourly, and not be affected by it. Like, we didn't have that. We didn't have the information coming out, like, literally coming out by the second or whatever. I just don't understand how people can just look at it and go, oh, that's terrible, and move on. Like, that's the bit I don't know how we get from that to doing, like, getting them involved some way.
People do try and get involved. They see it, they'll go on marches. It's just, they're not being listened to. They're just not being listened to. They need to be listened to, I mean, we've an optimum time now. We've an election coming up. We need to spread the word, kind of like, we're just not happy with the performance on this,
Would you say it's a good idea for anybody knocking at people's doors in the next while to put that question to them straight away before you say anything else?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, your man's gone mad to get re-elected. Otherwise, he's throwing everything at us, so. Sure, so we do need to spell it out to them. That we're in solidarity with the people of Gaza. We need them to, on our behalf, as somebody said on the TV during the week, they're our employers. We employ them to do a job. They're getting paid out of our money, In
1987, around whenever the boycott came in, Ireland was the first country in Europe to actually boycott South African fruit and veg. So I think it would be a good opportunity for Ireland to be the first now to do the same again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mandla, I might leave it yourself to have the final word if you wanna say anything else, and we'll wrap up then.
Yeah, I think it is important to us, particularly in these times, to be able to utilize social media in ensuring that we build unity first and foremost amongst Palestinians themselves in the occupied territories as well as in Gaza. We have continuously utilized the lessons that were learned during our struggle for liberation in South Africa. It was when we set aside our partisan lines and stopped seeing each other as the African National Congress and the Pan-African Congress. And we rallied under one roof, that being the United Democratic Front. And in this regard, we were able to enjoy the full masses of our people and focus our fight against the oppressor, that being the apartheid regime in South Africa. And I believe it is important to draw lessons from this in ensuring that we are able to unite the Palestinians and ensure that they coordinate their efforts in order to wage an effective struggle for liberation against the Zionist apartheid state of Israel. But I think also in terms of the international solidarity work for us that are outside the region, I've always spoken to the importance of activating the 7 million Palestinians in the diaspora. many of us that were in exile. And we had only a few hundreds of South Africans that were in exile. Yet they became the voice and ambassador of our struggle for liberation. And this is why it is quite critical that we ensure that the Palestinians in the diaspora must become the frontline soldiers of their own struggle for liberation and be able to dispel the propaganda and the lies that have been perpetuated by the Zionist apartheid state of Israel. And therefore, we can be able, comrades and friends, to receive this information in real time. The electronic intifada has enabled us to share these videos in real time, and no one can ever say that they do not know, they do not understand, because the information is readily available. And therefore, it will be critical for us to ensure that we intensify the work that we do and we coordinate our efforts. The global community has become very small today because of social media. We are able to connect on real time. Today, we are having this session. I'm seated in South Africa. You are in Dublin, in Ireland. We have our comrade and brother from Palestine in Gaza. So we can be able to exchange information in real time. And in this regard, for us, what is truly important is that we should ensure that we utilize social media in advancing the Palestinian struggle. But we can be able to applaud ourselves because today we are witnessing protests and marches in every major city across the globe because of the work that has been inspired by the likes of the dance store strike workers that has been able over the generation to inspire many to likewise continue to be conscientized about the oppressed nations and the most vulnerable societies across the world. And therefore, we continue to be the voice of reason and the voice of change anywhere we see oppression and injustice. So I want to really thank the dance store workers that we have today with us for having been able to ignite that light amongst us in South Africa. And we continue to be the voice of the oppressed and the most vulnerable. And this is why you have seen His Excellency President Ramaphosa, our former Minister Naledi Pandor, and Minister Ronald Lamola, having been able to take the Zionist apartheid state of Israel to the ICJ and hold them accountable for the first time in history since the Nakba, the catastrophe of 1948. And this we owe to all of you that have been able to stand side by side with us during our struggle for liberation. I speak today as a free man because of your sacrifices and your efforts, and therefore we are truly indebted to you. I thank you, comrades. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mandla. I don't know if you've seen the news, guys, but Mandla is currently being prevented from entering Britain. Too dangerous for the Brits. Legend. Guys, would you like to say anything quick? I'm being kind of like, whoa, it's nearly over here. But if you have anything to say to wrap up.
We just wish you all the best.
Yeah, and just when we were refused entry into South Africa, it was one of the things that changed our strike.
Yes.
So hopefully this will be something that's going to change the way people look as well.
Amazing. Guys, one more time for Mandla Mandela, Vonnie Monroe, Sandra Griffin, and Mary Manning. Dublin City Council, get your act together. Thanks, guys. So, walk this way. Thank you so much. Don't go away now without a picture. Yeah. Now, guys, we're going to take a break, but before we do so, we have an amazing bit of music for you. Thank you so much. You've been incredible so far. Just stay for this one last bit, and then we're on the break. Jarlath Cowan is an artist and singer from Cookstown, County Tyrone, one of my favourite places in Ireland. And he's going to sing a special song written by Sandra Kerr and Christy Moore for the night that's in it.
Hi, everyone. There's a wee song called Dun Stores about Miss Mary Manning herself. Give it up for her. Sing along if you know the words. Close your eyes and come with me back to 1984. We'll take a walk down Henry Street till Dunn's department store. The supermarket's busy, the registers make a ding, and the groceries go rolling out and the cash comes rolling in. Mary Manning is at the checkout and she's trying to keep warm when a customer comes up to her with a basket on her arm. The contents of the basket, Mary's future was to shape, but the label clearly stated, produce of the Cape. I can't check out your oranges, missus, now won't you bring them back? For they come from South Africa, where white oppresses black. I'd have it on me conscience, and I couldn't sleep at night if I helped support the system that denies black people's rights. Our union says don't handle them, it's the least that we can do. We fought oppression here for centuries and we'll help them fight it too. The managers descended in an avalanche of suits, and Mary was suspended cause she wouldn't touch the fruits. Dun stores, Dun stores, Dun stores in St. Bernard, but their value beats them all. Well, her friends were all behind her, and the union gave support, and they called a strike, and the pickets brought all Dun stores to a halt. No one was going to tell the boss what he bought or sold. These women are only workers, they must do as they are told. Isn't it just typical of apartheid's cruel law? It's not just in South Africa, the rich trampling the poor. He wouldn't have a boycott, he couldn't give a tinker's curse. Doesn't matter how he fills the shelves, so long as he lines his purse. Dun stores, Dun stores, Dun stores in St. Bernard, but their value beats them all. Well, the messages came rolling in from all around the world for such concern and sacrifice and for courage brave and bold. When 14 months were over, 10 women and a man had helped to raise the consciousness all around the land. Cleary's in O'Connell Street wouldn't sell South African shoes. Passmen sent all their clothes back, Rochester stores sent back their booze, until all South African goods were taken off the shelves at Dunn's. Mary Manning was down in Henry Street, sticking to her guns. Dun stores, Dun stores, Dun stores in St. Bernard, but their value beats them all. Dun stores in St. Bernard, but their value beats them all. Dun stores, Dun stores, Dun stores in St. Bernard, but their value beats them all. Yeah, Dun stores in St. Bernard, but their value beats them all. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Before we start, I've just been reminded by a lovely woman called Karen there to let you know in terms of the BDS campaign, there is a fantastic app. I might be preaching to the converted, but I might just say it anyway, called the No Thanks app. If you don't know about it, it's developed by a Palestinian. I've actually been in touch with him a good few times. He has been slandered by the Zionist regime, shocker. But it is a fantastic app. It's very functional. If you have a smartphone, you can just go into any supermarket and scan an item if you're in doubt as to whether it is anyway complicit with the Zionist regime. So the No Thanks app. Now, without further ado, we're going to start the second half. We've an absolute treat for you here now. Colm Mac Con Iomaire is an Irish composer and musician from Dublin who plays the fiddle. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Colm to the stage!
Cowboys Ted. So, Ceach Bhfuilsibh is mór agam an Tuilibh. Salam alaikum. If you give me a second, I'll just get my band together. So, back just before COVID happened, I spent a kind of life-changing 10 days traveling around Israel and Palestine. I was over there with the writer Colm Mac Con. He had just written a novel called A Paragon. And we were visiting with an organization called Narrative 4, visiting schools and refugee camps. Narrative 4 is an organization that works with schools mostly, educators, and we foster empathy through storytelling. So we swap stories. You tell me your story, I tell you mine. We go back to the group, and I tell your story in the first person, and it's a transformative thing. So I was there. We found ourselves in Nablus one day, and I was the only musician there, and they wanted to teach us a Palestinian dabka. So they taught me the rhythm. And the following day, I was in a schoolyard in Ramleh, and the muezzin call to prayer went off in the mosque next door. And somewhere between the dabka rhythm and the muezzin came together into this piece of music, which is called the Minbar of Salahuddin, which is in the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So. Gurmil Magi, Shukran. So I won't keep you long. I'll keep you a little longer then. Okay, so I was there in, we were visiting Nablus, where I got the rhythm, that was in the Tomorrow's Youth organization. We're remarkable people. Just from there to, we were in Aida refugee camp, meeting people and talking about what they call beautiful resistance. Beautiful resistance is a concept of getting the youngsters who would otherwise be throwing stones at soldiers and getting shot, instead giving them paintbrushes, giving them pens to write, giving them music instruments, turning it into something the Israelis are far more terrified of. So I was also, while I was there, I was reading Colm Mac Con's book, A Paragon, which hadn't been published yet. And I was also meeting the men the novel is about, because it's not really a novel, it's a telling of two men, two bereaved fathers, Bassam Aramin from Jericho and Rami al-Hanan from Jerusalem, Quds. And Rami's daughter, Smadar, was killed in a suicide bombing in 1997, I think. And Bassam's 11-year-old daughter, Abir, was murdered outside her school by an Israeli soldier. She was 11 years old. And the two men, as they call it, they use their grief as a weapon to end the occupation. And they travel the world, best friends, one Israeli Jew, one Palestinian, and they tell the story of their daughters as a way of keeping them both alive, and also showing the stories behind what would otherwise be a statistic, a blip. So when when the minbar of Saladin arrived in music form for me, I felt an enormous responsibility, as I did, being over there and seeing with my own eyes what I found incredible to be happening in the 21st century, which is apartheid, racism, theft of land, just the brutal and casual brutality and cruelty is just staggering. And as Irish people, I think we are uniquely attuned to what settler colonialism looks like. And I just think it's so important that our leaders, who are at the moment have been just experts in hand-wringing and empty gestures, I think, yeah. I think maybe what hasn't been mentioned tonight is it isn't the power of Israel that keeps this whole thing going, it's America. Yeah. And also there's a saying that if you want to find out who controls you, see who you don't criticize. And I think that's where our government are, and I think we need to get our hands out of the fumble in the greasy corporate till. So I'll leave you with this piece. It's a piece I wrote in Paris and will be part of the same musical project as the Minbar. It's called The Road to Jericho. And it's for everybody in Gaza and Lebanon tonight. Camila Mahagi.
One more time, guys. Wasn't that absolutely beautiful? Absolutely beautiful. How my Cork crew doing? Are you going home tonight? Are you staying over? Huh? You're staying here, are you? Wow. No recession in Fermoy? I'm getting the 11 o'clock bus, like. Okay, guys. We're going to drive on, and we're going to hear from some speakers now at this point, some esteemed speakers. First up to the stage, I hope she's ready. Is she primed? Yeah, great. Is Dr. Nuala Quinn. She, again, is from the inimitable Cookstown in County Tyrone. She's a consultant. You have the whole evening sewn up, really. She's a consultant in emergency medicine and practices primarily in CHI at Temple Street, and she will speak now about the Gaza Paediatric Care Initiative. A warm welcome, please, guys, for Dr. Nuala Quinn.
Thank you so much, folks. As Tag said, my name's Nuala, and I'm a paediatrician. I work just up the road in Temple Street. And I've been given a few minutes to speak to you about our group, the Gaza Paediatric Care Initiative. We're a group of doctors, nurses, healthcare workers from all around Ireland. And at the beginning of all of this genocide, we came together really just to try and get some advocacy together, do some fundraising, see what we can do. In the very beginning, we managed to raise about 300,000 euros and sent that out to Medical Aid Palestine. And we were, just doing continuous things like that, which is great. But I think, like everybody else, we were really feeling a huge sense of despair at our inability to actually be able to do anything. We were sending money out to our colleagues. A lot of our aid was getting blocked in Jordan. It was really frustrating. And then something kind of very surprising happened within a week of the Taoiseach changing. We got a call from the Department of Health to say that the Minister would like to meet us and that they were considering taking children over from the occupied territories over to Ireland. So over the past few months, we've had a series of meetings, and more meetings to try and arrange about how we can get families over. Essentially, what's going to happen is that the government's going to fulfil the request by the EU to accept families from Gaza and from Cairo. Each European country has been asked to take 30. We've obviously accepted 30 and we'll continue to take as many as we can. And the way that that's going to happen in the first instance is that we take them out of Cairo. At the minute, with everything that's happening in Gaza, entry to Gaza has just been completely blocked down. We're unable to get in and out to get any of the children and families. So what we're doing is we're going through a spreadsheet of evacuation for children and families that the World Health Organization has put together for us. So myself and another consultant, paediatrician Trish Scanlon, are looking at the list. We're interviewing families. We're finding out everything about the children, where they're from, how many family members they have, what medical treatment they have, who they are, who they belong to is one of the most important things, because we get these spreadsheets full of names and we realise that a lot of these children are actually orphaned and nobody owns them. So it's just actually one of the most heartbreaking things. But as we were starting to move towards bringing the children over, then we realised that the care initiative is not just about medicine, and it's not just about bringing children over to have an operation. It's actually about resettling them and keeping them here with us in Ireland. And I mean, credit where credit's due. The Irish government have been brilliant with us. They've basically said, choose the children, you can bring their families, we'll help you evacuate them, and the help and support that we have had all around the country has just been absolutely incredible. So in addition, as part of getting these families settled and into life, because unlike other countries like Lebanon are taking children over, they're operating on them and they're sending them straight back. we've been basically given permission to bring them over and keep them and keep their families, which is it's just such a blessing to be able to do that and to offer that hope to them. So at the minute, we are submitting lists to the World Health Organization, and we're taking a variety of acute and chronic cases. Some of the children that we have requested for evacuation have really serious blast injuries, burns, and need reconstructive surgery. They're the ones, that we see on the TV. We see the horrendous videos that I just can't watch anymore. So we're taking some of those children, but we're always also taking children who have medical conditions that we take for granted and they can't get access to their medicines. So things like epilepsy, they can't get anti-epileptics, they're having seizures constantly that's causing them to have acquired brain trauma. Clotting disorders, so something that, children in Ireland, if they have a clotting disorder, they go into Crumlin or to Temple Street once a month, they get an intravenous infusion and they continue on about their lives. These children can't actually get factor, which means that any small injury will cause them to bleed to death. So things that we take for granted that they just can't, because they can't access the things that we can. So we're taking those families as well. We're also looking at taking extended family members over with the groups as well. And I mean, we had a clear enough directive from the Department of Health, and it was put into the Irish Times that it would be one carer, one child. But I mean, of the first 10 families that we've requested for evacuation, most of them have got about 6 or 8 siblings, so it's going to be an absolutely huge project. And the other really amazing thing about it is that the arbitrary number of 30 is out there, but the goodwill that we've had from the departments, and honestly, I'm honestly saying this, the goodwill from the Departments of Health, Justice and Foreign Affairs has supported us to bring over as many families as we can. We have got accommodation for them with the Irish Red Cross. We have community support. We have people in the audience actually that are a part of our steering group and our task force. So we have the Gaels Against Genocide, Michael Docherty somewhere in the audience, who has been unbelievable in helping us with contacting Cle Clubs throughout the country and just making sure for things. Things like there is a very unstable political environment at the moment. So we had a few issues with the development that we were building in the west of the city, and Michael and his team were able to go down and use their contacts to help make sure that these families would be taken care of. Islamic Relief, so we've a lovely husband and wife partnering who are here, Kahir and Hanan. And Hanan actually comes online with me and helps me do the consultations in Arabic. They're a really amazing couple. Aoife Tuig is a child psychiatrist, and she's helping set up a nationwide mental health support group for the traumatised children and their families. And we have this huge group of people, including Phil Nahay, who you're going to hear from later on as well. So every single part of the journey of these children is being taken care of from our charity. We're gathering money, we're gathering welcome packs, we're gathering food, we're gathering support, we're helping to build a community building. But most importantly, and I think this is one of the positive things from such a depressing situation and scenario that we have right here, is that every single doctor and nurse, every healthcare professional that I spoke to around the country to say, if we bring kids over, will you take care of them? Will you look after them? Will you bring them onto your operating lists? Will you follow them up? And every single one of them said yes. And the consultants and nurses that are taking care of these children, phenomenal. And even the amount of emails that I get from doctors and nurses saying they'll come in on their weekends and work pro bono, it's just so heartwarming. So the initiative, the first set of children are hoping to be here in the next couple of weeks. The first evacuation's taking place from Cairo, and then hopefully we'll be able to get into Gaza, because these children need to be collected out from under the rubble. They just cannot stay there anymore. So we're going to take really good care of them. I think one of the hardest things about all of this is actually seeing their faces and being able to talk to them. When Hanan and I do their online consultations, we're trying to order medicine for them and contact doctors on the ground in Gaza to do different heart scans and different things, and move people around places to get the diagnoses and the medicines that they need. And I think the hardest thing about all of this is actually seeing them. And for me, I suppose the children that I'm talking to, wondering whether they're going to be alive tomorrow when I speak to them. And I'm not saying that to be depressing, I'm saying that because it is the genuine truth. So for all of you, we have an election coming up. Pressure on the politicians with everything that we've spoken about tonight, but especially pressure to say we need to keep taking as many children and their families that we can. We just need to fill planes and we need to get as many of these poor children out. And the Irish government, I have to say, credit to where credit's due, they've been absolutely brilliant. So hopefully in the next couple of months we'll start to have these families in and treated and settled all over Ireland. So at least, you know, out of the horrible rubble will hopefully come something positive.
Nuala Quinn, everyone. Amazing, absolutely amazing. Our next speaker tonight is a Hickey, of course. As a surname, we're kind of carrying the country at the moment. Dr. David Hickey, who probably needs, again, no introduction, but I'll do it anyway. Will speak on behalf of Gaels Against Genocide, who have done tremendous work highlighting the plight of Palestinians across Ireland. Ladies and gentlemen, the man, the myth, the legend, David Hickey. You might be looking for this.
Thank you, Ty. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As Michael Doherty and Jen Phillips are in the crowd, I'm going to wave this flag because I don't know what they'll do to me if I don't. They're from Belfast. Okay, guys, that's your 5 seconds of glory. It's great to be sharing the stage with Tide again. He's a distant relation, very, very distant. We don't talk about him. But we are talking about something very, very serious tonight. I read an article, a letter in Haaretz newspaper based in Jerusalem on the 13th of October last year. And the letter was in response to an article by Didion Levy in that newspaper. And it was written by a man called Hirsch. And the end of it is like this. 80 years ago, as a sitting duck, a 5-year-old sitting duck, with a yellow Star of David emblazoned on my jacket, I survived the Warsaw Ghetto. I thought it would never happen again. I thought we would have learned. But sadly now I've come to the conclusion we haven't learned and we never will. We, he says, meaning Israel, have resigned from the human race. That's it. That's all. Hirsch. That was from an Israeli man writing about his country in Jerusalem. And we all thought at the time, it's on a week, it can't possibly get any worse. But here we are today, a year on, probably, according to the Lancet, 300,000 people dead. Not 42,000, 300,000. So we were living in the darkest of times, very, very dark times. And the light at the end of the tunnel is flickering and flickering and is about to go out because nobody in the so-called free world is tending to that light. Now, I submit that Ireland is in a unique position in the world. We were the first colony. We suffered all the dehumanizing, all the slavery, all the savagery, all the torture, all the translocation, and even the famine. So we have knowledge of what Palestinians are going through. We also are unique in Western Europe in that we never colonized anybody. So I think, as a people, we have the moral authority and the obligation to stand up for our Palestinian brothers and sisters. Now, I'm here representing Gaza, Dales against genocide in Gaza. And I think it is a beautiful example of what a few committed individuals can achieve. I traveled up by train to Belfast last December and met Michael Doherty, then Phillips, and a few other lads. And, things were just starting. We couldn't believe the war was still. Sorry, it's not a war. This is just an assault. It's not a war. So we talked to them, and they invited us up they had a little march, they said, arranged for a couple of weeks later. So we got our group jobs for Palestine. There's no cost for Palestine yet, Ty, but I'm sure you can worse than that, can you? You're not even listening to me. Tippy little horror. Anyway, these guys have mobilized the entire GAA community in the north of Ireland, and they have embarrassed a certain amount of the GAA community in the south of Ireland. So well done. I'm using them as a kind of an example of what small groups of committed individuals can do. These men and women have achieved probably the greatest BDS boycotting event that has happened in Ireland. And I bet none of you know anything about it. And that is a problem we have with RTE, Irish Times, Irish Independent. The only newspaper that actually covers any of this is, believe it or not, Dave Hoffman in the Daily Star. Yeah, it's true. Anyway, where was I now? Jesus. Talking about the start. We had 100,000 people on Dublin Street last Saturday. We had 10,000 people in Shannon last Saturday. Wonderful demonstrations of solidarity. Not a mention in the Times, in the Independent, or on RTE. Shame on them. RTE covered a stolen car in Tala ahead of 100,000 people in the city. So that's what a small group of people can do, and it is taking off. I do feel there is progress. We have so many great community groups. We have Mothers Against Genocide, Granddads Against Genocide, and I'll just say a slightly funny story, and I hope no one will be offended by it. We went down to Shannon at the weekend, and I was picked up by the Mothers Against Genocide in a bus at Luff. So we pulled in for a cup of coffee in the Apple Green, came out. Maybe some of you are here that was on that bus. The bus wouldn't start. So I jumped ship. I was told there was a couple of places in the bus behind us. So I jumped ship, and I sailed on down to Shannon with Gay and Lesbians Against Genocide. So I think that is a wonderful demonstration of how the Irish people have grasped this and taken it to their hearts. We only now have to move on and get our government to move. And I want our government, we have 5 things as a group we need to do. And we're not asking our government to do this. We are telling them to do it, and if they don't, we will move on to the next move. Okay? They will be out in the election. Number 1, we have to sign the Occupied Territories Bill. This was passed by the both houses of the Oireachtas in 2018, and they're still faffing and looking for advice. The Attorney General gave bad advice. Now, the new Attorney General said it was okay, but they want more advice than that. That has to go through. Absolutely has to go through. Number 2, and we have to force them to get off their arse and do this. We have to sign on with our wonderful South Africa for the ICJ case. To raise a plan, Simon Harris said on the 28th of March they were going to do it. They haven't done it. They won't do it unless we make them do it. Number 3, we can't allow Shannon Airport to be used as a landing pad and a takeoff for the U.S. overseas projects. We are not an aircraft carrier. We are, I think, a sovereign nation still. Number 4, as Israel has resigned from the human race, has roughshod over every rule in the book, we want that abhorrent building in Balls Bridge closed down and that animal sent back home. There is a 5th one. Okay, we have to stop whining and asking Israel to do things. The time has come to make Israel do things. We have to do it now. The time is, it's late, but I believe Europe is on the tipping edge. All it needs is for a country like Ireland, and there's no way we can improve our relationship with Israel anyway, so it doesn't matter damn what we do to them. Ireland needs to stand up. We fought for 800 years of independence, and through James Honey, who was mentioned already tonight, but all the other heroic figures of that period, we were the shining light in the world. We were the first country to get independence from the British Empire. And we were the first domino to cause the domino effect in anti-colonialism and activity. So bravo Ireland for that. But as our country has become increasingly more materialistic, more spiritually impoverished, we now are more of an economy than a country. We need to stand up and be counted, because we do not belong in the millionaire club. They still look down on us in spite of us being the wealthiest country in the world, as so I'm told. So we need now to push Europe. Spain, if we do it, Spain will be in, and then all Europe will be behind it. And if Europe is behind a boycott of Israel, Israel will cease to exist. Now, isn't that worth thinking about? Okay. We are under pressure for time. Simon Harris said today they got new advice from Brussels, so they're going to meet next week. As was pointed out next week, 300 people in Gaza, West Bank, and Lebanon will be dead. There is no more tomorrow for this. A little quote from Martin Luther King. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. Over the bleached bones and jumbled residue of numerous civilizations were written the words, too late. We are too late for 300,000 heroic, brave Palestinians. We are too late for them. And all we can do is say sorry. But we can do a lot more than that. We have to mobilize, we have to energize, we have to get people sitting on either side of us to come to the protests. We have to start disrupting people, disrupting those sessions. We have to get a plan that actually makes these people see that their futures depend on doing what we, the people, their employers, as Mary Manning earlier said, do. Okay. We're too small, some people say. What can we do? The famous, very famous anthropologist Margaret Mead made this statement. Never doubt that a small group of committed individuals can change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever did. And we are here tonight, in the presence of three heroes, three young Dublin girls who took all the vilification that even the church could throw at them and bore it out. And I mean, Nobel Peace Prize isn't a big enough accolade for these girls. Congratulations to them. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, David Hickey! Go on to Hickeys! Right, guys, we're going to move it on. For your next panel, your final panel. So I am going to bring the guests out because we don't have much time. So the chair of the panel is Phil Nisha. She's the General Secretary of the Irish Nurses and Midwives Organisation and a strong supporter of the Palestinian people. Phil visited Palestine in 2023 before the beginning of the genocide. Phil is also the Vice President of the Irish Congress of Trade Unions. Give a big round of applause to Phil. Adrian Kane is a trade union official with SIPTU with responsibility for transport, energy, aviation and construction. He is author of the book Trade Union Renewal, and he is also, very importantly, from Cork. I think.
I'm terrified.
I've certainly seen him in Cork. Now, next, I'm very pleased to introduce Asil Shukar, is a Palestinian activist from Gaza, who is active in the Irish movement for 2 years. Asil completed her Master's in Humanitarian Action from UCD on the role of the media, titled Israel's Media Hegemony and the Palestinian Reality. And our last panelist is somebody that I just plucked up the courage to say hello to for the first time there. Bernadette McAliskey. Also, I mean, ludicrously from Cookstown as well. You all know this, but a leader in the civil rights movement in the north of Ireland, elected at that time to Westminster as the youngest ever member in 1969 at the age of 21. She was present on Bloody Sunday, led the Battle of the Bogside, was politically active during the 1981 hunger strike and survived an assassination attempt on her life by loyalists. Ladies and gentlemen, Bernadette McAliskey.
Gur míle maithagah is mis filní hé agus be míad solibhagóir timpeall leabhar a chléig agus tásúlagam go muna sibh tanna bhas méid a hálérá an panel. So everybody, it's great to be here. Great to have all of this put together by John and everybody involved. It's fantastic. It gives us great hope. All of us who are involved in the Trade Union Friends of Palestine, Gaels Against Genocide, and all the other groups. But I'm going to start tonight with I think the first Palestinian we've heard from tonight, Asil. And I'm going to ask Asil, what does it do for you, Asil, being a Palestinian living in Ireland, to have this support?
I have chose to come to Ireland for a reason, and I think all the speakers tonight have made that clear why I chose Ireland. I can't stand the idea of if I choose to live somewhere not Palestine, it has to be among people who can relate, who can understand what it means to be oppressed. And unfortunately, in this modern era, we can only have empathy if we have suffered, which I've always been calling on others to have more empathy. You don't need to have suffered to relate to others. Just try to expand your empathy and feel what they have felt. And I am very grateful that I chose Ireland because I was given a space, a platform that I was denied all my life. Just like the rest of Palestinians, we crave to be heard. There's so many stories, there's so many facts. We just want to be given a space and given a platform. And I'm giving one today, and I'm so glad, and I'm just one voice among millions of Palestinians, among millions of stories of suffering, different forms of suffering, Palestinians in diaspora, Palestinians in Gaza, Palestinians living within 48 borders, Palestinians living West Bank. There's so many different layers of suffering. Every Palestinian house has so many stories to be told.
Thank you, Asil. And I think a lot of the speakers have said it, and a lot of people in the audience here would have visited your country through their various groups. And I think I was lucky to visit in 2023 with a trade union group. And one of the things that was constantly said to us was, don't be silent when you go home. Speak out and speak for us. So we're glad that you're here to speak for your people. And we will continue to assist in trying to amplify what we saw. And as has been described earlier, it's like so easy to see how apartheid can just be so visible when you're there. Bernadette, I'm going to come to you next. I said to you that I'm going to ask you, but you were so young when you started your activism, and you were up against the might of what I suppose nobody thought could ever be undone. I just want to ask you, what do you think would give young people in the audience here some courage to keep going, to keep doing what is so important with this struggle?
Well, I think I'd agree with Mary Manning that we were young. As Mary said, she thought a fortnight would do it. I wasn't far behind. We had a lot to do, and we thought I'd give it a year. And there comes a point, and I'm sure young people who are already involved know that you start to do things and you learn more as you're doing them. And almost everybody starts out, except for all the people who have read Karl Marx and everything else before the rest of us. They know how the world is made. But most people start out because something has touched them in terms of their understanding of fairness or decency or humanity. And most people start out from the illusion that it must be that people in power don't really know that it's happening. And you don't be too long active till you realize that they do know. And after another while, you realize not only do they know, they're part of it. And so you gather strength. But what I would say about all young people, because I was nearly going to say not young, but that would be almost an admission that I was old. So I'll skip that bit. I think young people in the world today are immeasurably braver than young people in the 60s. Because in the 60s, we'd come through the Second World War. It was over in 45, 2 years before I was born. And then after that, you know, we had the sort of recovery, end of rationing, recovery of the 50s. We had the economic boom, certainly in the UK, of the early 60s. And we had then the explosion of youth revolution everywhere. And we lived in a different world. We lived in a world where there were challenges everywhere to the status quo. Students were revolting. There were national liberation movements right across Europe, USA, globally. And there was a context of a liberalizing world. So the old order was changing. We are now in a very different situation. I've been telling people for years that we were living in a world that was creeping towards fascism. It is now galloping at a rate of miles towards fascism. And and Israel is central to that. You know, Israel is a colonial project of old colonial Europe and the intention of America to lead the new world order. They are part of a long colonial memory. They are part of a reconstituted Christian crusade of monarchs and theists and whatever. And for young people in Palestine to stand against that, knowing the price, knowing the price that is to be paid. We didn't know the price was to be paid till we paid it. And by that time we were in it to the neck, so we might as well have been hung for a sheep as a lamb. But young people today, I think, are incredibly brave. I think they're creative. I think they are more collectively, communally able to collaborate and work together than we were in many ways. And so I think people of my generation and older people, you know, we have lived experience we can share if we're asked to, but it is not our job to lead. It is for young people to lead. And I was very much taken with what our South African comrade, who was really sad that he couldn't be with us, but his wisdom in saying, one of the things that we're missing in the campaign, even here in Ireland, is that the leadership of this campaign should be the Palestinian population in this country. It is their country, it is their struggle. And it's not for us to say, well, we have organizations, and we do, and I'm not knocking them, they're doing great work. And we all do what we need to do. But, and I'll get into trouble for saying it again, it's not for us to determine how Palestinians fight for their freedom. It's not for us to determine how Lebanon resists Israeli occupation. It is for them to do, and it is for us to know which side of the line that we are on. So I suppose I would say I don't know what I can teach young people until they ask me what it is they don't know. And then if I know, I'll share it. But usually I find out they know as much as me. But what I do know is that what you have to do is keep doing what you know to be right, even though you pay for it with everything else you have. That's what Palestine has done, and we have to do it too.
Thank you, Bernadette. And I think those are sentiments that are difficult sometimes. You know, people think, like when you heard the Dunstores workers earlier, you know, even when we ballot people for strike, Adrian, it's fair to say people think the first thing they'll say is, yeah, when they're great for the campaign, and the settlement is usually a big problem. But when it's something that is remote from, you know, your actual place of work now, that is different. It has changed. That has changed tremendously since the days of the Dunstores. And Adrian, you might want to have an overview of that.
There was a couple of things that I was going to say, but I remember hearing Bernadette speaking. I'm not sure how long ago. It was one of the big rallies in Dublin, and you had compared what was happening at the moment of something akin to Spain before the Second World War. And when I'd heard that you were on the panel tonight, I said there were incredibly prophetic words in terms of the way things are unfolding now. And I was talking to a friend of mine earlier, and if we had known back at the end of October that this was going to go on for another year, what would we have done differently in this room? And I listened to David Hickey in terms of the 5 things that we could do. I think, to be quite honest with you, we haven't time to be wasting time, as in every day and every passing hour somebody else is dead. David McWilliams, who is the kind of voice of Middle Ireland, had an article last week in the Irish Times in which what he stated was 28.8% of the trade of Israel is with Europe. The equivalent in terms of what that trade for Europe to Israel is 0.8%. I think what we need to concentrate on is severing economic links with Israel. And we called for that, and Tig had called me a Cork man, and I'm not, obviously you can tell by the flat Kildare accent, but I've been living down there long enough that maybe they'll accept me as one of their own after a while. But I do think that the sequencing of this is that Ireland can't move at the slowest pace of the European laggards. It has to lead the way. It has done that with recognising Palestine. The Occupied Territories Bill, which we have put huge, and Phil will know, we put huge effort into it as well, but I think we have to leapfrog this in terms of the priority being in relation to economic sanctions and banning trade with Israel. And I think that's really the core issue that we need to work on. We had also, and I would praise the Cork Trade Council in relation to this, and I note that Connect, a trade union, passed a motion at their conference in the last number of months as well. What we had been looking for is a clause, a conscience clause, that you couldn't be sacked for refusing to handle goods from a country that was under the investigation of genocide at the ICJ. Now, there is a private member's bill, I understand, being promoted by Duncan Smith, and I think it's important that we get behind that. But they're the smaller items. I think we have to focus now in terms of that issue of trade. I remember listening to Al Jazeera a couple of weeks in, and this man was talking about that it was the first hospital that was bombed. And he said, this changes everything. And I thought to myself, I said, this will change nothing. Or did he know something? And it changed nothing. There are no red lines. And the only thing that will bring this in the same way when we listen to Mandela's grandson is economics and isolation. And that's, I think, what we all in this room need to focus on over the next number of weeks and months.
Thanks, Adrian. So, Asil, the hope in Ireland is that we will lead. We'll be the first domino, as I think David Hickey put it so well, and that would, get Spain and maybe Norway, who's also a great friend of Palestine, and other like-minded countries, because at European level it just isn't possible to get consensus. So it's never going to happen through Brussels. That's the message. So the hope is that we would then be able to start that whole movement on trade, on economics. Does that give you hope? Does that give you, I suppose, some ambition that maybe that will influence the horror that your country is witnessing?
I don't get my hope from European Parliament, because we are in this situation because of Western powers. As mentioned earlier, the investment in Israel, this is a legacy of colonialization, because the former form of colonization was abolished. And the only lasting colony is Israel. And it's not a coincidence that all these billions are invested into the establishment of this colonial state, because they are benefiting from it. So it's really important to see the bigger framework of things, to understand things clearer. The more you understand the situation, the better you can help. It's important to also listen to the people, what it was mentioned. When I want to find out and learn more about what's happening in Sudan, I go to my friend who's from Sudan. I try to know more from him. There are things that were mentioned today that maybe it was good intention, but is actually very hurtful to be said. When we're trying to draw the comparison between the apartheid in South Africa or elsewhere, or even Palestine, we need to be very careful, because we also need to draw the differences. There's no situation that is identical to the other situation. In my own analysis, apartheid was the outcome, the aftermath of years of colonization in South Africa, but in Palestine, it is used as an instrument to maintain this imbalance of powers of occupy and occupied. So when we try to fight apartheid, I'm trying to fight the bigger picture, which is decolonize Palestine. It's not about I need justice and I need to be treated fairly, just like the Israeli. He should not be in my land to start with. So, and some people might call this extreme, but you just need to call things as they are. You coming from Italy, you coming from Morocco, you're coming from Spain, you don't belong here. You don't expect from me to just treat you the way I wish to be treated. You're an occupier, and I'm an occupied. You existing in my land has caused and means the suffering of others. Every Israeli being called an Israeli has caused the suffering of God knows how many Palestinians, how many house destruction of house, how many prisoners paid for just one person to be called an Israeli who does not even belong to this land. So for me, it's really important to draw the parallels, because here it is an instrument to maintain this separation. When you have land, when we have West Bank, like roads that we can only use, water is just maintaining this power imbalance to further control us. Whereas in South Africa, they wanted the majority, the black majority, to stay because they were benefiting from them. But in our case, they want to abolish us. So there are
stark differences.
Massive differences. Yeah. So when you want, of course, it's important. Same thing, colonization in Ireland is very specific to Ireland. Of course, there are similarities to Palestine, but it's really important to be careful, because when you start comparing Israeli Palestinian, we're not barbaric, and I don't like when this discourse, when they try like, come on, peace, be together. No, you can't expect me. This is not peace. The very fundamental idea of colonization is the opposite. It's like the contrast of peace. If you really want true peace, there shouldn't be an Israel to start with. So it's not just... And for me, it is a project, a long-lasting project that started 100 years ago, but was planned for it previously, because there is always has been interest in that region. And it's not just Palestine. And you see them. You see Netanyahu proudly showing their greater Israel. And this map was not a secret. This has always been the plan, furthering and breaching and moving into Lebanon, moving into Syria. Why this part of the world is always troubled. It's not a coincidence that the global south is troubled, that there is a global north who is just dictating when to step in and when not to step. I think people need to be aware as individuals of their power, and they need to reclaim their power. When I'm asking for people to boycott, it's not just the negative and the passive, but you also need to empower the local, empower the produce of those oppressed communities. Instead of buying Israeli produce, if I have a Palestinian produce, I would buy. If a local Irish produce, this is how you reclaim power. So for me, seeing the example of the Duns worker, this is exactly what we need to keep in mind, because every big movement, every big liberation started maybe with one individual and two, and it just spread.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as like hatred, it's contagious, but also if we stand up and if we really acknowledge our power as individuals and as a collective, because I'm pretty sure maybe majority of this room did not know much. They have learned a lot throughout this year. Maybe before that they just heard some stuff, bad stuff happening in Palestine. Maybe they've never heard of Palestine, but we're here. Of course, it's very painful to know that at least 200 or 300,000 Palestinians have paid the price for this number of people to come to this knowledge, unfortunately. And especially that we don't have an excuse. We have our phones, we have technology, we have access to knowledge that no other generation had. So we don't have excuse. People say that it's tricky, I don't know much, because they simply don't want to act. Because they are too coward to act. Because it costs you a lot when you act. Because people lost their mortgages when they took an action. Yes. And people don't want that. Because unfortunately, we are an individualistic community that was created by all those big colonial empires. Now we just think of ourselves, and this is what is bringing us down and down. So I just think that the example of what happened in Dunstore is a perfect example that just, not only in Ireland, but if you think of all the movement, the liberation movement that happened around the world, it started small, but it's the snowball, and it's the momentum. And as mentioned, there is no limits to Israel. We already knew this, but we were waiting for the world to see the barbaric reality. And it's, you know, when they bombed the first hospital, people were shocked. But now it's just another headline, 2 more hospitals. This is exactly their
Red
warfare
line areas are
tactic.
crossed.
They follow this tactic of numbing people. So the first time you're hearing this, you're shocked, you cry, you're in tears. But then you become more and more numb, like, oh, okay, this is the 5th hospital. This is exactly what they do. The tents, I remember the first time they hit the tent, everyone lost their mind. This must be, no, the world will flip, they will stop them. Nothing happened. And they will keep breaking more and more. They were gonna keep surprising us, and things will get worse and worse. So this has been their tactic, and it's important to be aware of this.
Thank you, Asil. And I think the important thing about that is what you said earlier, Bernadette. You know, we don't have the right to tell people how their country should be. Should it be a 2-state? Should it be a, you know? So it's great that the Palestinian expatriate community is, I think, very intertwined with a lot of the movements, the grassroots movements here, and hopefully that will strengthen. But we have a big expat community in the United States. You know, we have a big Jewish community in the United States, and we can see playing out in the American election, you know, where the power lies there. And maybe you want to say a few words.
I think we have, you know, we're very good at telling ourselves how good we are in this country. We love it, you know,
sure we're mighty.
Oh, get it out, sure we're mighty, you know. You know, the only day we were beat was the day we didn't turn up. That's a Tyrone saying. The only day we were beat was the day we didn't turn up. Part of the reason is we take the easy road. Now I'll tell you where the hard road is. The hard road is the United States of America, who are responsible for controlling and driving all of this in their own colonial interest. And there is a nest of vipers in this country who would have us be an offshore American state, who would have us abandon neutrality, who would have us join NATO. And they may be small, but they're in positions of influence in politics, in economics, in the media, in the universities. And we see in our politicians, and I say it again, nobody should have been standing on St. Patrick's Day with Genocide Joe Biden. Nobody. And yet our government and our would-be government went. And we are right to take economic sanctions against Israel to build that, because if we do not put manners on Israel peacefully, manners will be put on Israel by the only means left. And that's the reality of life. And people are already paying for that. And we either have an open democratic world or we don't. And we don't. Now, Ireland needs to do more to put manners on the United States of America. So we need, for example, when we were talking about what could we do, I don't mean instead of the boycott, the BDS, I'm not talking about that. But McDonald's is an American company. We should focus on it and put it out of business. It's a very simple thing to do. We could pick that one, they pride themselves on being everywhere. We could pick that one American company on the very simple basis, and I said it last week, McDonald's feed, and make a big deal about publicizing that the Israeli army fights on McDonald's burgers. They feed them. They feed them. Coca-Cola feeds them. Those two companies. So we have to say to people very simply, McDonald's feeds Israeli soldiers. Israeli soldiers kill ordinary women, men, and children like us. Ordinary men, women, and children like us who eat in McDonald's provide the money for that all to happen. So please, do not eat there. Please do not eat there. And it's a simple message. It's a simple message that repeated. You don't have to shout and abuse people feeding their children on bad food cheaply. They could be informed about that too, but you have to get that simple. And I'll tell you this, because I have grandchildren. There is not a child in this country would allow its parent to feed it McDonald's burgers if they heard and understood that message, that the money that was going into that shop was killing children. The children wouldn't let the parents buy it. There are other things, but we have got to do the difficult job, which is bite the hand that we imagine is feeding us. And we have got to let America know we are not on their side. They will not come through Shannon. They will not own us, and we will not be part of their war.
We've come to the end of this debate, this panel discussion, and maybe just before we close, one sentiment like Bernadette has set out there, Adrian.
Yeah, I think Bernadette is right, and what I would say to people and said, imagine if we're here in 6 months or a year's time, how do we prevent that? And how do we focus and prioritise? And I take deeply what Asil has said as well. No two situations are the same.
Yeah.
But in terms of hitting Israel, the States, is really, really important, and doing that in a very coordinated manner. And, you know, when, again, looking at the economics, that's where we have to, and the sequencing of this is Ireland taking a lead, having a moral standing in the world which far outweighs its economic and its demographic significance. And I wouldn't underestimate that for a minute. And that's the way, and we can get some sort of resolution. And ultimately, as I say, that's determined by the Palestinian people. But to my mind, that's the level of focus and coordination that we need to try and crack this.
Final word to you, Asil.
I think what's happening in Palestine, not because I am from Palestine, it's very dear to my heart, but it has opened people's eyes, not only to the reality in Palestine, but the reality in their countries, how little space they have of expression of freedom, especially in the haven of freedom of speech, as we were told, and in the Western world. Even in Ireland, I think Ireland needs self-determination as much as Palestine as well, because it's been 1 year, we have been marching. I have been seeing so many actions, so many panels, so many things. The people are bleeding the government just to hear them out. It's actually terrifying thinking that a country like Ireland, and still the Dáil is just turning a blind eye to the streets. We would be marching and screaming outside the Dáil while they are voting against the motions. So which shows you like how much control do we have? Like was mentioned earlier by one of the dance workers, that they are our employees. It doesn't feel like that. Like you are exploited and you're not heard, not only in Ireland, but across Europe, who we were told, the countries, the uncivilized countries, that they were civilized, that there's freedom of speech, and where they are smashing the protesters in Berlin, in Paris. What freedom of speech you've been showing off? So it has exposed people, and it is terrifying to know that the country you've lived in is actually, you have been living in this illusion of freedom of speech, illusion of safety. You only have the freedom of speech if your speech matches what they want you to say. So it's very important to know that this is a fight for Ireland. While you're fighting for Palestine, you're fighting for Ireland as well. Because in order to have a voice, to have action, to have control over your own airports, over your own airspace, over your own decisions and sovereignty, you have to reclaim your own power. And I see how much control the US has over Ireland. It is, to be honest, that's my own opinion. I don't feel Ireland has sovereignty because they can't say anything without consulting US. They are afraid of making a statement before consulting the US. Oh, if maybe my statement will anger the White House. So do you really have freedom or sovereignty? It's not a matter of land, it's a matter of decisions as well. So it's really important to think about it as Irish people as well, and of course in other countries, how much control and freedom you have.
Here, here.
Thank you very much, folks. I think that brings us to the end of this panel, and I think there's some music coming up next. So, Gurmila Mahagav.
Amazing, guys. Amazing. One more time for your panelists. Don't go away, don't go away, don't go away. We've got 2 musical acts before we go, guys. Don't go away, you're going to miss unbelievable stuff. The last act is from Palestine. So wait a while. But before we get to our last act, ladies and gentlemen, would you welcome to the stage an Irish folk musician, singer-songwriter who has been influential in folk music for over 6 decades, during which he recorded a large repertoire of songs. Ladies and gentlemen, Andy Irvine.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Well, this has been a great uplifting experience for me to listen to all these people talking about this cause. And if my 2 songs are not directly pertinent to the cause, they are about people who, if they were here, would certainly have been in support of everything that we've heard tonight. And especially the Dunn Stores workers, I remember that really well. And the first song I'm going to sing is about a woman called Mary Harris, who was born in Cork actually in 1837, although she said 1830. And she became known as Mother Jones. And she certainly would have been she would have been right there outside Dunn Stores with a plaque, I'm sure. So. Mother Jones is dead and gone, she could no longer stay. No one knew how old she was, but she was often heard to say how she was born in 1830 in the sweet County Cork. But she crossed the foaming billows till she landed in New York. Mother Jones, the miner's angel, must be treated with respect. She's an old-fashioned lady, and you never would suspect that this gown and this bonnet would fill the rich man full of dread. She's the most dangerous woman in America, they said. And I see her walking up the street with her umbrella in her hand. I can hear her still at Ludlow, where the miners made a stand. And she says, John D., will you kindly tell to me, how could you let your troopers lay them 13 children down in the horrors of West Virginia and in Colorado too? Mother Jones and her miners they never could subdue, and the men they fought and died in their tents and shanty towns. And the women stood like a wall of steel that nothing could batter down. Mother Jones, the miner's angel, must be treated with respect. She's an old-fashioned lady, and you never would suspect that this gown and this bonnet would fill a rich man full of dread. She's the most dangerous woman in America, they said. It's now for the horrors of child labour, says she. And the march of the mill children took place in 1903 from California, from Philadelphia to New York. And I hear the people say, and to the foot says the foot. She died in 1930. Oh, the sadness was profound. And they laid her to rest in a Union burial ground. And she lies in Mount Olive, where the midnight wind it blows. Stand up for the Union, cries the spirit of Mother Jones. And the rich man and his police and his pulpit and his press got away with murder then, they get away with it yet. But we'll forge a mighty union and we won't be overthrown. And we never will forget the spirit of Mother Jones. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, you know, my great hero when I was growing up, and still my great hero, is Woody Guthrie. And I wrote this song about Woody some years ago, and it has, I put in one of a mantra that Woody wrote in 1943, which I want you to sing very loudly, because it goes like this. All of you fascists bound to lose. All of you fascists bound to lose. Yes, all of you fascists bound to lose. You're bound to lose, you fascists bound to lose. Think you can sing that? All of you fascists bound to lose. All of you fascists bound to lose. Yes, all of you fascists bound to lose. You're bound to lose, you fascists bound to lose. Well, it comes after the third verse, and when we get there, I hope you'll sing it a bit louder than that. Because there's one thing about all fascists is they're fucking deaf, you know? So when we get to that, please drown me out, if you would. Okay, this is how it goes. I was just a small-time country boy when I left that dusty town. Route 66 to the westward, and I hopped an old freight down. California, here I come, by the side door Pullman and the sunburned thumb. They called us Okies, low-down bums, the police on us frown. Never tire of the road, never tire of the rolling wheel, never tire of the ways of the world. Way out yonder's a calling me, and the dark road leads me onwards. On the highway, that's my code. The lonesome voice that I heard in my head said, never tire of the road. California to the New York Island, me and my guitar. And we played in many's a hobo jungle, many's a skid row bar. Standing out in the wind and the rain, that lonesome whistle is a sweet refrain when you're waiting for some old freight train that carries an empty car. Never tire of the road, never tire of the rolling wheel, never tire of the ways of the world. Way out yonder's a calling me, and the dark road leads me onwards. On the highway, that's my code. The lonesome voice that I heard in my head said, never tire of the road. Shipped on board of a Liberty ship to sail the ocean blue. We were carrying guns, TNT, and D-Day soldiers too. All of the men on board agreed with Cisco, Jimmy, Longy, and me, and our song rang out across the sea. You fascists bound to lose. Oh yes, all of you fascists bound to lose. Yes, all of you fascists bound to lose. You're bound to lose, you fascists bound to lose. We say all of you fascists bound to lose. Louder! All of you fascists bound to lose. Yes, all of you fascists bound to lose. You're bound to lose, you fascists bound to lose. Don't let them ever fool you or take you by surprise. The dirty smell of the politician and the man with the greed in his eyes. One big union, that's our plan, and the IWW's your only man. The flames of discontent we'll fan for the cause that never dies. Never tire of the road, never tire of the rolling wheel, never tire of the ways of the world. Way out yonder's a calling me, and the dark road leads me onwards. On the highway, that's my code. The lonesome voice that I heard in my head said, never tire of the road. And all of you fascists bound to lose. All of you fascists bound to lose. Yes, you are. All of you fascists bound to lose. You're bound to lose. You fascists bound to lose. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Andy Irvine. Amazing. And before our very last act of the evening, I think we might have a video message from Gaza. Is that true, guys? Ahmed from Gaza, take it away.
You, like our beloved South Africans, know well that anyone who's neutral in situation of injustice has chosen the side of the oppressors. May Almighty Allah mercy the souls of the great Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu, as well as all the Irish and Palestinian martyrs. What really keeps us stay steadfast is your non-stop solidarity and support, as well as our full awareness that there are many noble free people like you, dear Irish comrades, who stand by our side. By the support of Allah and then your support, nothing will manage to break our morale. We need you to keep your support. Nothing will manage to break our morale. We need you to keep imposing as much pressure as possible on your governments so that they do what is necessary to make sure that the so-called Israel will not have the impunity it has always enjoyed. We need to keep having such solidarity events which make us feel that we are not alone anymore. We will keep our struggle till our 4 green fields get rid of the bondage until they bloom once again. Chucky Ireland.
Man after my own heart. So guys, just before we get to the last act, I just want to say thank you so much to the organisers, Left Block and the others for having me. It's been an honour to MC. The one thing that I've taken from this evening more than anything else is that solidarity can be tough. It's not always easy. It's not going to always make us feel okay, or ordinary people might have to be put out a little bit, and governments need to be put under pressure. So I think going forward, we need to take that lesson. Was anyone here at Shannon last week? I think that hopefully felt like a day where something more significant is kind of happening, and maybe we just might need to make the government a little bit more uncomfortable, because they're not going to do the right thing on their own. So thank you so much, guys. It's been a beautiful evening, and I'm going to close now with some friends of mine. They're from Cork. Well, they've travelled up from Cork. They're Palestinian and Moroccan musical duo. They're absolutely amazing. They wow us all the time at our marches and rallies in Cork. Ladies and gentlemen, your last act of the evening. Thank you so much for being such a beautiful audience. Leen and Latif, take it away!
It's working now. Hello, everyone. My name is Leen. I'm a Palestinian refugee from Lebanon, and this is Latif. He's from Morocco. This is probably has been mentioned before, but we in Cork, and we come from Cork, we in Cork like to mention things twice just in case. Yesterday, the City Council of Cork passed the motion to pass the Occupied Territories Bill, so out the rebels. A great example for everybody to follow in Ireland. And in the world as well. So this very song is actually an ode to Beirut, where I grew up. My family is currently displaced. My mom, my grandparents, my mom, my grandma, my aunts are all fled to north of Lebanon. And my dad is a nurse, works in the Palestinian Crescent Society in the refugee camp in Dahiya, which is being heavily bombarded at the moment. And he's just doing his duty, and they just split from the rest of the family. And I'm raising funds for my family at the moment. I literally just set up a link on GoFundMe, and it's on my Instagram. So if you'd like to support my family, please do. You can talk to me after, and we can talk about it. So yeah, this song is a very special song for me because I grew up in Beirut, and it's a very special city. It's where both of my parents grew up as well. My grandparents were ethnically cleansed from Palestine in 1948, and we have no right of return to our homeland.
لبيروت من قلبي سلام لبيروت وقبل للبحر والبيوت لصخرة كأنها وجه بحار قديم هي من روح الشعب خمر هي من عرقه خبز وياسمين فكيف صار طعمها طعم نار ودخان لبيروت مجد من رماد لبيروت من دم لولد حمل فوق يدها أطفأت مدينتي قنديلها أغلقت بابها أصبحت في المساء وحدها والليل أنت لي أنت لي عانقيني أنت لي رايتي وحجر الغد وموج سفري أزهرت جراح الشعب أزهرت دمعة الأمهات أنت بيروت لي أنت لي Thank you.
Thank you. This next song is dedicated to the resistance both in Palestine and Lebanon.
عاب مجدك بالمذلة والهزائم حينما هب الجنوب لكي يقاوم إن تاريخ الإباء غير نائم يكتب عن أرضنا أرض الملاحم عاب مجدك بالمذلة والهزائم حينما هب الجنوب لكي يقاوم إن تاريخ الإباء غير نائم يكتب عن أرضنا أرض الملاحم إني أهل العزم إن تدعى العزائم هذا سيفي بالوغى بالموت قائم إن شعبي كله وطن مقاوم ما ارتضى غير المعزة والمكارم إني أهل العزم إن تدعى العزائم هذا سيفي بالوغى بالموت قائم إن شعبي كله وطن مقاوم ما ارتضى غير المعزة عاب مجدك بالمذلة والهزائم حينما هب الجنوب لكي يقاوم إن تاريخ الإباء غير نائم يكتب عن أرضنا أرض الملاحم ما ركنا للمذلة لن نساوم وانتصرنا رغم عدوان المهاجم فليرى الأحرار يا كل العواصم كيف يغدو المجد في الأوطان دائم ما ركنا للمذلة لن نساوم وانتصرنا كل عدوان المهاجم فليرى الأحرار يا كل العواصم كيف يغدو المجد في الأوطان عاب مجدك بالمذلة والهزائم حينما هب الجنوب لكي يقاوم إن تاريخ الإباء غير نائم يكتب عن أرضنا أرض الملاحم عاب مجدك بالمذلة والهزائم حينما هب الجنوب لكي يقاوم إن تاريخ الإباء غير نائم يكتب عن أرضنا أرض الملاحم. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Free, 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 free.